The Meridian Defense Institute hung in space like a crystalline monument to bureaucratic overconfidence, its gleaming spires reflecting the light of 3 suns while housing the galaxy's most sophisticated military minds. Well, sophisticated by galactic standards, which apparently included ranking entire species based on their ability to manipulate quantum fields and their propensity for dramatic theatrical gestures during combat. Humans, according to the Consortium of Advanced Species official documentation, occupied the prestigious position of Category Sentience, nestled comfortably between domesticable wildlife and minimally useful labor resources. This classification had been reached through extensive scientific analysis involving approximately 30 minutes of observation and several centuries of casual dismissal. The Institute's promotional materials boasted of training the galaxy's finest military officers, preparing them for leadership roles in the consortium's ever-expanding sphere of influence. What they failed to mention was that finest was determined by species classification first, actual ability second, and political convenience third. Actual competence barely made the list. Commander Zixtal floated through the Academy's administrative section, his Vorthan physiology allowing him to exist as pure energy when convenient, and solid matter when paperwork required physical signatures. His species had mastered energy manipulation roughly around the time humans were discovering that pointy sticks made hunting easier, a fact he never tired of mentioning during staff meetings. The human integration protocol proceeds as expected, he reported to the assembled faculty, his energy form crackling with what passed for amusement among his kind. 2 specimens remain in the final assessment phase. Cadet Kai Blackwood shows promising theoretical knowledge, though his physical limitations remain substantial. Instructor Hive 7, whose Kreltic collective consciousness operated through approximately 4,000 interconnected minds, responded with the harmonic buzzing that indicated mild interest. And the female specimen? Phoenix Rivers. Adequate reflexes for her species, standard human emotional volatility, nothing remarkable in her psychological profile. Zixtal's energy form flickered with dismissive satisfaction. Both subjects should provide suitable demonstration of human limitations during tomorrow's graduation exercise. What neither of them had bothered to investigate was why Phoenix River's psychological profile consisted of exactly 3 pages, when standard academy assessments typically ran closer to 30. The graduation exercise represented the pinnacle of military education, a comprehensive combat assessment designed to evaluate tactical thinking, physical capability, and leadership potential under stress. For most species, it served as the final step before assignment to prestigious command positions throughout consortium space. For humans, it served as entertainment. Cadet Apex Stone, whose Zafani heritage granted him a crystalline body capable of processing information at speeds that made quantum computers look sluggish, reviewed the betting pools with something approaching satisfaction. His species had evolved beyond physical emotions millennia ago, but they retained a sophisticated appreciation for statistical probability and its entertainment value. Current odds favor complete human failure within 12 standard minutes, he announced to his fellow Zefani cadets, his crystalline form resonating with harmonic precision. 17 separate betting pools across 43 species have reached consensus on this timeline. The Malthar cadets, whose warrior culture valued physical prowess above intellectual subtlety, had placed significantly more aggressive wagers. Cadet Bloodfang Prime, whose name was actually a diplomatic translation of something involving 17 different kinds of ritual violence, had bet his ceremonial war axes on complete human breakdown within 7 minutes. Soft flesh creatures cannot endure proper combat stress, he declared, his massive frame radiating the kind of confidence that came from never having encountered anything he couldn't solve through applied brutality. Their primitive nervous systems will collapse under moderate pressure. None of them had considered that human nervous systems had evolved under pressures that would have sent their ancestors fleeing to safer dimensional pockets. Kai Blackwood stood in the preparation chamber, running through final equipment checks with the methodical precision that had earned him grudging respect from instructors who preferred their humans quiet and competent. His slight frame carried gear designed for species with significantly more robust physiologies, but his tactical mind had learned to compensate for physical limitations through superior planning and positioning. Standard simulation parameters, he murmured to Phoenix, reviewing the assessment criteria on his display tablet. Multiple threat scenarios, escalating difficulty, team coordination requirements. Should be manageable if we stick to Academy protocols. Phoenix nodded, her expression neutral as she adjusted her equipment harness. Where Kai's movements were careful and calculated, hers carried an efficiency that seemed almost unconscious, her hands finding optimal positions without apparent thought. Her brown hair was regulation short, her green eyes focused on details that didn't seem immediately relevant, and her overall appearance projected exactly the kind of unremarkable competence that Academy instructors found appropriately humble. "How long do you think they expect us to last?" she asked, her voice carrying casual curiosity rather than concern. Kai glanced at the observation deck, where alien cadets and faculty were gathering with the anticipatory energy of spectators attending a particularly entertaining sporting event. "Based on the crowd size and betting activity, I'd estimate they're planning for approximately 15 minutes of educational demonstration." "Educational," Phoenix repeated, testing the word like she was examining it for structural flaws. Interesting choice of terminology. What Kai didn't know was that Phoenix had spent the previous evening accessing Academy databases through methods that would have impressed the institution's cybersecurity specialists, assuming they had been competent enough to detect the intrusion. What she had discovered there had shifted her understanding of the graduation exercise from challenging assessment to elaborate execution. The simulation chamber itself was a marvel of galactic engineering, capable of creating combat environments so realistic that several species required psychological counseling after particularly intense scenarios. Holographic projectors worked in concert with matter synthesizers, gravity manipulators, and sensory enhancement systems to produce experiences indistinguishable from actual warfare. For most cadets, it represented the ultimate test of their military education. For Academy administrators, it provided an opportunity to demonstrate human inadequacy to a galaxy-wide audience through carefully orchestrated failure. The first scenario materialized around them, an industrial complex under siege, complete with structural damage, environmental hazards, and approximately 40 hostile entities converging on their position from multiple vectors. Academy doctrine suggested establishing defensive positions and coordinating suppression fire to control enemy advancement. Kai immediately began implementing textbook tactics, his strategic mind analyzing threat patterns and calculating optimal response protocols. Phoenix followed his lead, her movements precise and professional as they established overlapping fields of fire and began systematic elimination of hostile targets. The first wave fell to coordinated teamwork that exceeded alien expectations by a considerable margin. The second wave required more sophisticated maneuvering, which the humans executed with a fluidity that drew surprised comments from the observation deck. "Impressive adaptation," admitted Zixtal, his energy form flickering with something approaching respect. "Perhaps we underestimated their tactical capabilities." Hive 7's collective consciousness buzzed with recalculation. "Current performance exceeds predictive models by 37%. Simulation parameters may require adjustment." In the chamber below, Kai and Phoenix had cleared the industrial complex and were advancing toward their next objective with the kind of professional competence that made excellent military promotional videos. Their communication was minimal but effective, their positioning almost intuitive, and their target acquisition disturbingly efficient. The Academy's adaptive training protocols, designed to provide appropriate challenge levels for different species, began increasing scenario difficulty to match observed performance. What had started as a standard assessment evolved into something approaching actual military operations. 20 minutes into the exercise, alien observers were no longer placing bets on human failure. Instead, they were quietly recalculating their assumptions about Category C sentient capabilities and wondering if their classification system might need revision. That was when the simulation's safety protocols received new instructions from Academy administration. Commander Zixtal's energy form solidified as he accessed the chamber's control systems, his manipulation of the interface carrying the kind of decisive authority that came from making difficult decisions for the greater good. The graduation exercise had become an embarrassment, demonstrating human competence rather than human limitation, and embarrassments required correction. "Activate enhanced difficulty parameters," he commanded, his harmonic frequency carrying overtones of regret mixed with necessity. "Full spectrum threat assessment, live ammunition protocols." The chamber's weapon systems, which had been operating in training mode with non-lethal energy outputs, quietly shifted to combat specifications. Environmental hazards increased from challenging to genuinely dangerous. Enemy targeting systems upgraded from educational demonstration to military precision. Kai noticed the change first, his tactical awareness recognizing subtle shifts in weapon signatures and threat behavior patterns. The simulation had stopped teaching and started trying to kill them. "Phoenix," he said quietly, his voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded very bad news. "We have a problem." She was already moving, her body language shifting from professional competence to something harder to define. Where moments before she had seemed like a capable military cadet, she now carried herself with the fluid precision of someone for whom violence was not an academic exercise, but a familiar tool. The upgraded threat scenarios converged on their position with mathematical precision, each attack vector calculated to overwhelm human reflexes and defensive capabilities. 43 different alien military traditions had contributed tactical knowledge to create an assault pattern that no category sentient should survive. Kai's analytical mind processed the convergence patterns in microseconds, calculating trajectories and timing with the kind of desperate clarity that came from facing impossible odds. 17 separate weapon systems were locking onto Phoenix's position, their targeting solutions optimized for maximum lethality. He had exactly 23 seconds to do something about it. "Phoenix, incoming convergence, you're 6 o'clock, multiple vectors," he called out, already moving toward the threat pattern. His slight frame carried him through the simulated battlefield with desperate efficiency, his tactical mind calculating not survival probabilities, but impact absorption coefficient. Phoenix turned toward his warning, her green eyes widening as she recognized what was happening. Not the tactical situation, which her training had already analyzed, but Kai's response to it, which her experience told her was unnecessary. "Kai, no," she started to say, "but human reflexes, even enhanced ones, operate on biological timescales that measure reaction in tenths of seconds rather than micros." Kai Blackwood threw himself between Phoenix Rivers and 17 separate weapon systems, his body absorbing impacts designed to penetrate military-grade armor and eliminate threats that posed danger to galactic stability. High-energy projectiles struck him center mass with mathematical precision, each one carrying enough force to drop a Malthar warrior or shatter Zephana crystal matrices. He collapsed backward, blood spreading across the simulation floor in patterns that looked far too real for training exercise, his dark eyes finding Phoenix's with the kind of awareness that comes just before systems shut down permanently. "Phoenix," he whispered, his voice thick with biological failure and fading consciousness. "Exercise. Compromised. They wanted demonstration." For exactly 23 seconds, the universe held its breath, while Phoenix Rivers knelt beside her dying friend and processed information that reconfigured her understanding of the situation from military assessment to execution protocol. When she stood up, Kai Blackwood's blood staining her uniform and his identification tags in her left hand, the observers in the Academy's viewing area discovered that their entertainment had transformed into something entirely different. Phoenix moved through the simulation's remaining threats with methodical efficiency, but the nature of her movement had changed fundamentally. Where before she had demonstrated competent military training, she now displayed something that existed several evolutionary steps beyond anything the Academy's databases contained. Each threat that had been designed to overwhelm human capabilities found itself neutralized with surgical precision. Weapon systems that should have been beyond human reaction time were disabled before they could acquire targets. Environmental hazards that should have channeled human movement into kill zones became navigational aids for someone who understood battlefield dynamics on a level that transcended academic training. The simulation's control systems, operated by the galaxy's most sophisticated artificial intelligences, attempted to adapt to performance parameters that exceeded their programming. Emergency protocols engaged automatically, attempting to shut down scenarios that had clearly exceeded safe operational limits. Phoenix walked through containment fields as if they were suggestions rather than physical barriers, her movements carrying the kind of casual efficiency that suggested she was finally operating within her actual capabilities, rather than pretending to struggle with challenges designed for lesser threats. Zixtal's energy form flickered with frequencies that indicated extreme distress as he attempted to regain control of systems that were no longer responding to administrative commands. Emergency shutdown procedures, immediate cadet extraction, full containment protocols. Hive 7's collective consciousness buzzed with harmonic patterns that translated roughly to, "We may have made an error in judgment." The simulation chamber's blast doors, designed to contain military threats, up to and including small-scale nuclear events, sealed with decisive finality. Emergency power systems engaged, backup containment fields activated, and the Academy's most sophisticated security measures snapped into operation around a single human cadet, who had apparently decided that graduation exercises should be interactive rather than passive. The first security response team was Malthar 12 warriors, whose combat training had prepared them for threats ranging from energy-based life forms to crystalline hive minds. They found the blast doors converted into abstract art installations, and their containment fields generating error messages in languages their computers didn't recognize. The second security team was Zephany, 6 crystalline entities whose information processing capabilities allowed them to calculate tactical solutions faster than most species could perceive threats. They discovered their predecessors' equipment, arranged in neat geometric patterns, and their sophisticated weapon systems expressing mathematical concepts through interpretive sculpture. By the time the third security team reached the simulation chamber, Phoenix had emerged into the Academy's main corridors, walking with the measured pace of someone who had specific objectives and unlimited time to achieve them. She carried Kai's identification tags in her left hand and a data storage device in her right, a device that contained every piece of evidence necessary to transform the Academy's training protocols from internal policy to galactic scandal. The corridors emptied before her approach like atmosphere fleeing a hull breach. Alien cadets who had spent years training in combat techniques designed to prepare them for any conceivable military threat found themselves confronted with something their instructors had never mentioned: a human being who had stopped pretending to be harmless. Cadet Apex Stone, whose crystalline matrix had been calculating tactical probabilities since Phoenix's emergence from the simulation chamber, finally achieved computational clarity regarding their situation. "She is not demonstrating enhanced human capabilities," he announced to anyone within harmonic range. "She is demonstrating that we have been observing artificially constrained human capabilities." The distinction, while academically interesting, provided little comfort to Academy personnel, who were discovering that their security measures had been designed to contain threats that followed conventional rules of physics and tactical doctrine. Phoenix paused at the Academy's central directory, consulted the facility map with the casual interest of a tourist planning a sightseeing route, and continued toward the communications center with the kind of purposeful stride that suggested she had done this sort of thing before. The communications center represented the pinnacle of galactic information technology, capable of instantaneous contact with every corner of consortium space. Its security systems could resist intrusion attempts from entire governments. Its encryption protocols could stymie the galaxy's most sophisticated intelligence agencies, and its isolation procedures could cut off all external contact in nanoseconds. Phoenix knocked once, politely, and waited approximately 3 seconds for a response that never came. Then she placed her palm against the security panel and did something that the Academy's computers would later describe in their error logs as impossible quantum manipulation of access control matrices. The door opened with a cheerful musical tone. Inside, she found Communications Officer Resonance Prime, whose Zafani physiology was currently vibrating at frequencies that indicated complete systemic panic. The crystalline being had activated every emergency protocol in the communications center's defensive repertoire and was frantically attempting to establish contact with Consortium Military Command. "Please," he harmonized in desperate overtones that created sympathetic vibrations in nearby equipment. "I am a non-combatant specialist. My function is purely administrative. Geneva Conventions, Galactic Accords, Universal Rights of..." Phoenix walked past him to the primary communication array, inserted Kai's data storage device, and began uploading files to every major information network in known space. The first file contained complete documentation of the Academy's graduation exercise protocols, including detailed records of adaptive challenge parameters that had resulted in the deaths of 43 human cadets over the past 5 years. Each death had been classified as training accidents. Their families informed that their children had died heroically while demonstrating the courage of their species. The second file contained communication logs between Academy administration and various consortium military commands discussing the Human Integration Protocol and its effectiveness as a method for demonstrating human limitations while maintaining plausible diplomatic courtesy. The third file contained complete video documentation of today's graduation exercise, clearly showing the moment when training protocols switched to lethal parameters and Kai Blackwood died, protecting someone who had never required his protection. The fourth file contained something more interesting: classified psychological profiles of Human Integration Protocol participants, including detailed assessments that had been excluded from official Academy records, assessments that described combat capabilities, tactical knowledge, and operational experience that exceeded anything the Consortium's intelligence services believed possible for Category C sentience. As the files propagated through galactic information networks, Phoenix activated the communications array's emergency broadcast system and recorded a final message. Her voice carried no anger, no emotional volatility, no theatrical passion that aliens expected from humans under extreme stress. Instead, she spoke with the calm precision of someone filing a routine operational report. "Consortium Command, this is Phoenix Rivers, student designation Human 77 Alpha, transmitting from Meridian Defense Institute. I am uploading complete documentation of systematic murder of human personnel under the guise of educational demonstration. Academy administration has violated approximately 63 separate galactic accords regarding treatment of Category C sentience." She paused, glancing at Kai's identification tags. "I am also transmitting formal notice that human participation in the integration protocol is hereby terminated. All human cadets will be withdrawn from consortium educational programs pending investigation of these incidents." Another pause, longer this time. For the record, Kai Blackwood was an exceptional tactical analyst and a loyal friend. He died because your people required proof of human inferiority. Instead, you have demonstrated something rather different. She deactivated the recording system and walked out of the communications center, leaving Resonance Prime vibrating at frequencies that indicated complete cognitive breakdown. The Academy's corridors remained empty as she made her way to the departure bay, her blood-stained uniform and measured stride creating a combination that encouraged even the most aggressive alien species to discover urgent business elsewhere. The few security personnel who attempted to intercept her found themselves dealing with someone who treated their advanced tactics and sophisticated equipment as minor administrative obstacles. At the departure bay, she paused at the memorial wall, a crystalline surface that listed Academy graduates who had died in service to galactic peace. 43 human names were inscribed there, each one marking a death that had been classified as educational demonstration rather than deliberate murder. Phoenix traced Kai's name with one finger, leaving a small bloodstain beside the fresh inscription, and walked to the nearest transport shuttle. The pilot, a nervous Aquarian whose tentacled appendages were trembling with barely contained panic, attempted to verify her authorization for immediate departure. "Ma'am, I require proper clearance documentation before." Phoenix looked at him with green eyes that had become something entirely different from what they had been that morning, and he discovered that clearance documentation was suddenly optional. As her shuttle cleared the Academy's docking facilities, emergency broadcasts were already cascading through consortium communication networks. The uploaded files had reached major news organizations, military commands, and civilian governments simultaneously, creating an information shockwave that no amount of diplomatic damage control could contain or suppress. Within hours, the story of Kai Blackwood's murder and Phoenix Rivers's response was being analyzed by every intelligence agency in known space. The carefully maintained fiction of human limitation collided with documented evidence of human capability, creating cognitive dissonance that rippled through alien societies like a quantum cascade failure. The Meridian Defense Institute closed permanently 4 days later, its administration facing criminal prosecution in 23 different legal systems. The Human Integration Protocol, which had operated for over a century as a symbol of consortium inclusivity, was suspended indefinitely pending complete investigation of its operational methods. Most significantly, humans withdrew from all joint military and educational programs, citing fundamental philosophical differences regarding the value of sentient life. Applications for human security consulting services, however, increased by approximately 8,000%. Consortium Command's official response emphasized their commitment to investigating these tragic incidents and ensuring complete accountability for any administrative failures. Unofficially, they distributed classified advisories to all member species, recommending significantly more careful evaluation of human capabilities and motivations. The galaxy, it appeared, had learned something important about the dangers of assuming that quiet competence indicated limited capability. Somewhere in human space, Phoenix Rivers attended Kai Blackwood's funeral and never spoke publicly about the events at Meridian Defense Institute, but throughout consortium space, alien military academies quietly revised their training protocols, and the phrase, "category sentient," disappeared from official classification systems. After all, there was adequate performance, and then there was walking out of a military academy covered in blood, while carrying evidence that would restructure galactic diplomatic relationships. Apparently, humans had been demonstrating the wrong kind of adequacy all along.